The secret to never getting deported is protect the information, what country you are from, using the Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions and the Fourth Amendment right to refuse to give permission to have you or your belongings or your place of work or home searched.
Are you ready for the...
Welcome to another episode of Alert Money 365, where we focus on triumphs, struggles, and financial journey of immigrants and their descendants. Today's episode is an incredible, important, and timely discussion I'm going to have here with Attorney Philip Berns, especially with the mass deportation currently taking place across the U.S. For many in our community, immigration status directly impacts family stability, financial security, and the ability to plan for the future. So that's why I am so honored to have Attorney Philip Berns, an experienced immigration attorney, here with us today. We'll be tackling your pressing questions that many of you have. What legal rights undocumented, let's start again. What legal rights undocumented individuals have, how to protect our assets, what steps you can take to prevent deportation, and what resources are available if you or a loved one is facing removal. So if you or someone is at risk, this episode is for you. Make sure to take notes, share with your community, and let's dive into the conversation because I want to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. Attorney Berns, how are you? Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's just dive right in. What inspired you to specialize? Let's look at the background first. What inspired you to specialize in immigration law, and how has your experience evolved over the years?
All right. Well, I took a twisted turn to immigration law. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in South America and in Haiti, so I speak fluent Spanish and Haitian Creole. And my first year out of law school, it never even occurred to me to practice immigration law. I sent out resumes to some local law offices to try to get a summer job. And I think the very next day I got a call from an attorney saying, "What, you speak the second and third languages of Connecticut after English?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, you absolutely have to do immigration law." So I decided to take a course in immigration law in law school, but it was all about business immigration, and it was at 8 p.m. at night. So I found myself falling asleep and really disliking everything to do with immigration law. I loved immigrants, but immigration law was an entirely different matter. But when I opened my own office, when word got out, especially in the Haitian community where there were like no Haitian Creole speaking attorneys, I was getting 30 calls a day, which I think, lawyers frequently take up to 10 years to build up to that sort of level of telephone calls. 29 out of all 30 calls every day were about immigration. So I made the unwise decision to do a little bit of immigration, law until such time as what I really wanted to do, things like employment discrimination and things that I thought would be more interesting, that I would do a little bit of immigration law until I did that. And what I did not realize is immigration law with tax law is one of the two most complex areas of American law. And there's no such thing as doing a little bit of immigration. As a matter of fact, you can do it for 5 years, you can do it for 10 years. You're still not necessarily a particularly good attorney. You have to really focus, really concentrate on it, and really do nothing else. And at this point now, I've a very limited immigration practice. There are several things I will do and a number of things I will not do, which frees me up to do something else, which is accident law. So those are the two things that I do now.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. Welcome. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about immigration law and deportation?
Well, they either think it is a lot easier than they think. They think all you have to do is fill out these forms. And when I started doing immigration law, that's what I thought too. I thought, my gosh, I'm getting paid $500 to fill out this residency application. This is really easy. You put the name, the address, the telephone, the date of birth, the names of the parents, the addresses for the last 5 years, the jobs for the last 5 years. And 6 months, a year later, people get their green cards. Well, I did that for a year or two. And then I started also attending meetings of immigration attorneys and realizing all the mistakes I might have made on those clients that first year or so. Then I had 2 years of nightmares where fortunately none of those cases went wrong, but there's just all kinds of ways they could have gotten wrong. So it astonishes me and saddens me to see that the vast majority of immigrants do not go to real attorneys to help them with immigration papers. They either do it themselves, thinking I'm smart. I know what my name is. I know what my date of birth is. I know what address I live at, etc. I can fill out these forms. Or they go to what we immigration attorneys call notarios, which is the Spanish word. It sounds an awful lot like notary, but what people don't realize is outside the English-speaking world, notaries are much bigger a deal than they are in the English-speaking world. In England and in Great Britain and Canada, the United States, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, to be a notary, you pretty much have to know how to read and write, and you have to not be a felon. And if you take a very easy 50-question true-false exam, which is open book, by the way, and you pay $50 to take that exam, you can be a notary. Anyone can be a notary. And in outside the English-speaking world, in the French-speaking world, in the Spanish-speaking world, etc., notaries are real attorneys with many years of experience. So anyway, it's a mess. A lot of people don't go to an attorney until they've already gotten into problems, and by that time it's much harder to try to fix the problem than it would have been to do it right the first time around. So I can't remember what your question was, but I hope I answered it.
Yes, you did. If someone is undocumented, do they still have rights in the U.S.? And what are they?
Right. So the Constitution of the United States says, with very, very few exceptions, human beings have these rights. It does say citizens have certain special rights and indeed obligations, like they have the right to vote, they have the obligation to serve on the jury, they have the obligation to serve in the military if called upon, etc. But pretty much everywhere else in the Constitution, and certainly in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, it refers to human beings have these rights. And there are two particularly important rights that undocumented immigrants have that they don't know they have. And because they don't know they have it, they make it very easy for immigration to deport them. And if they knew these rights and they knew how to exercise these rights, they could make it, for most of them, very difficult to deport them. So with your permission, I'd like to talk about what is the secret to make it really hard for immigration to deport you.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, so first of all, don't commit a crime. Okay, that's a really big way to attract attention to yourself. It's like wearing a T-shirt with big letters, please deport me. So first of all, don't commit a crime. Secondly, don't get yourself an order of deportation, and even worse, an order of deportation in absentia. So a lot of people, when they have to go to immigration court, they're afraid, they don't go, or they don't think it's important. And instead of getting a regular order of deportation, they get an order of deportation in absentia, which has much harsher consequences, including, in my opinion, they're more likely to track you down. All right. Not only are you here illegally, but you're not even showing up in court. Judges really don't like that. But at some future date, If you do qualify to legalize your status, it's much more difficult to do so if you have an order of deportation in absentia rather than a regular order of deportation. So it's better go face the judge face to face. And if you really have no defenses, and the judge offers you voluntary departure, that's another big mistake people make, is they ask for or are offered and accept voluntary departure, and then they don't leave. Well, that also converts into basically the equivalent of an order of deportation in absentia, which has, as I said, much harsher consequences. So you're far better off if you haven't already bought your ticket to leave. If the judge offers you voluntary departure, you say, Your Honor, you're very kind to offer it to me, but no, I would prefer a plain vanilla order of deportation. Do not ask or accept a order of voluntary departure unless you've already bought your ticket and you are totally mentally ready to go. So the secret to never getting deported, to never even getting into deportation court, if your listeners forget everything else I say today and they remember the very next words out of my mouth along with the logical extensions of what I'm about ready to say, you will know the secret to never getting deported. And that is, if the government doesn't know what country you're from, it's impossible to deport you because the other country has to accept you. So an immigration officer doesn't have the right to look at this person and say, you look a little Chinese, I'm going to deport you to China. You look a little bit French, I'm going to deport you to France. And you look a little bit, Italian, I'm going to deport you to Italy, because China, France, and Italy don't want a whole bunch of Jamaicans and Colombians and Mexicans that they have to turn around and redeport to the correct country. So the country that accepts people being deported has to have been provided by the U.S. government with some sort of evidence as to that they are from that country. So how does immigration know what country you're from? Well, the most common way is they ask you, what country are you from? And the instant you say Antigua or Barbados or Ecuador or Peru or Honduras, you've just given them everything they need to deport you. Now, do you have the right to not answer that question? Yeah, if you tell them, no, not where you live, if you tell them what country you're from, you've just given them everything they need to deport you. So, do you have the right? First of all, should you lie? Absolutely not. Being here without permission is a violation of U.S. federal law, but it is not a criminal violation. It's a civil violation. Working in the United States without permission is a violation of U.S. federal law, but it is not a criminal violation. It is a civil violation. Lying to an immigration officer is a criminal violation. So if you want to cross the line and complicate your life a lot, lie. Especially if you lie about being a citizen, that has particularly harsh consequences. You can expect to never be able to legalize your situation in the United States ever. It's basically sort of a permanent bar. So, so do you have the right to not answer to that question? Because all our lives we've been taught by our parents, we've been taught by the pastors and priests and leaders in our religious institutions, etc., that you can either lie or you can tell the truth, and you're not supposed to lie, so everybody thinks they should tell the truth. Well, I'm a lawyer, and I'm here to tell you there's a third option between lying and telling the truth. There's silence. Silence is not lying, which gets you in trouble, and it's not telling the truth, which, if you answer these questions, also gets you in trouble. So are you permitted to not answer the question? The answer is yes. Where does U.S. law say you have the right to not answer the question? It's in the Fifth Amendment, that part of the Constitution written by the founders of the United States. So George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison gave every human being the right to silence when being interviewed or spoken to by a governmental officer. And that's not just immigration officers, that's FBI, that's state police, that's local police, that's the health department, everything. Now, there might be consequences in some circumstances to not answering questions, but the consequence to answering the question, what country are you from, is they now have everything they need to deport you. So, if you don't answer the question, what are they likely to do? They are likely to start searching your pockets, searching your wallet, your pocketbook, your backpack, your car, your house, and they'll keep searching until they find your birth certificate or your passport or your driver's license from your home country or whatever other document that shows what country you're from. And now, oops, there you are, you're in trouble again. So is there protection to that? Yes, there is in the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, another right given to all human beings by George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, etc., says you have the right to not be searched and seized without either giving your permission or the authorities having an appropriate search warrant or them having some sort of reasonable cause. So another mistake people make is they see an immigration officer, they start running, boom, you just gave them probable cause. So when you refuse to give them where you're from, and they say, okay, we're going to start searching you, you have to immediately say no, because if you don't say no, it's not right, but it is interpreted, it can be interpreted as you're saying yes. You have to say, no, I do not give you permission to search my person, my belongings, my car, my house. I do not give you permission. And hopefully, they will not have been taken, they will not taken away your phone, which you should have already turned on to video recording. And hopefully there will be other people around and they will all be turning on their telephones to video record as you say and repeat over and over again, because they will likely continue to search you anyway, even when you have said, I do not give you permission, I refuse permission. You want those videos as proof that you have not given permission. If you're by yourself, one way that you can prepare is if you just grab a little piece of paper and write the words, pursuant to the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, I do not want to answer any questions. And pursuant to the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, I do not give you any right or permission to search my person, my belongings, my automobile, my house, or anything else. And you make 10 copies of that little piece of paper. And the first immigration officer, you hand it to them and they rip it in shreds and they throw it on the ground because they absolutely count on your ignorance. And many of them are like Trump. They don't see you as being a human being. Then you pull out the second one, you give it to the second immigration officer, and he just throws it on the ground without ripping it. You give it to the third immigration officer, and at least they're a little more curious. They look at it, they say, I don't need this, and they continue to search you. And you just keep handing one after another, and of the 10, you keep the last one. And when, having violated your constitutional rights, they find your birth certificate or your passport or whatever, now they know what country you're from, and they send you to deportation court. You grab that last little piece of paper that's an exact copy of what you gave to the first 9 immigration officers you met, and you tell the judge, Your Honor, you see this piece of paper? I had 10 of these. I only have one left. I gave one to every single immigration officer the instant I came into contact with them, and they nevertheless searched me. You have it right there in writing. I told every single one of them, I don't want to answer their questions, and I don't give them permission to search me, but they did it anyway. They found this evidence having violated my constitutional rights, which means you, Mr. Judge, Your Honor, do not have the right to look at this evidence. And if you don't look at this evidence, you do not know what country I'm from. And if you do not know what country I'm from, you have no grounds to deport me, nor do you have any country you can deport me to. So I request that you permit me to go home. And the judge, if they are honorable, which a lot of them are, will say, okay, you're free to go. Your rights, your constitutional rights were violated. And as a result, I'm not permitted to look at these documents. Therefore, I don't know what country you're from. For all I know, you're born in the US. You are free to go. So the secret to never getting deported is to make sure they never find out what country you're from. The problem is you're living with other people in the house who don't know that. And when the immigration officers come, they're going to do the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to tell them what country they're from. And then the very next thing they're going to do is they're going to open the door. And the very next thing that's going to happen is you're going to have three 220-pound weightlifting immigration officers in your house searching it. So you and everybody in your home and everybody in your place of work and anybody you spend any time with, everyone needs to know when when immigration asks you what country are you from, do not answer. Do not open the door to your home or they will start searching it. If they want to come in, don't tell them they can knock the door down because then without realizing it, you've given them permission to knock the door down. But tell them you are not going to open the door. If they say, well, we have a judge's order, that it's 99% certain they do not have a judge's order because they count on people being ignorant, and the vast majority of people are ignorant and will open the door. So if they tell you they have an order, don't believe it. If they show you they have a document, you have to decide, are you competent to determine if this is a legitimate order or not? I would say the safer bet is tell them you do not believe that this is a legitimate order and you will not open the door, and then you'll see. If they knock it down, maybe it was a legitimate order. Or if they're really out of control and they still don't have an order and they still knock down the door, the simple fact of the broken down door and you having photographs of the broken down door to show the immigration judge at that later date when you're in front of the immigration judge, that knockdown door will be the proof that you did not give permission for them to come in and that your constitutional rights were violated. So again, the secret to never getting deported is protect the information, what country you are from, using the Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions and the Fourth Amendment right to refuse to give permission to have you or your belongings or your place of work or home searched.
Wow. I didn't know any of that stuff. Wow. That's a lot.
I have some very
Okay.
nice short videos created by the American Civil Liberties Union. There are 5. There's a playlist of 5 in English, and then the same 5 in Spanish, and the same 5 in Haitian Creole. I would be happy to forward that to you to send to your viewers and for them to share with their friends and family. I also have flyers in those 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole, that include a pre-written card that says, I do not want to answer your questions. Thank you, George Washington, for giving me the right to refuse to answer your questions. And I do not give you permission to search my person, my belongings, home, or place of work. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson, for that right. So you can just make 10 photocopies, keep them with you 24 hours a day. And God forbid one day you cross paths with an immigration agent, you and hopefully all your friends and all your family and all your coworkers and all your neighbors all have copies of this and you're ready to just rain them down on top of their heads. That you refuse to answer the questions, you do not give permission to be searched, and everybody's taking videos of everybody else. I also have a really great video of an actual case where immigration officers came to this young lady's home. And you can see in the video, she's shaking with fear, but she's refusing to open the door. And after 10 minutes, the immigration officers went away and nobody in that home got picked up and none of them got deported. Now, it is possible 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years later that they come back with a judge's order. But at least that day, everybody lived to fight another day. I also have a video that shows if you see somebody else being accosted by the Immigration Service, how to take a video and how to protect that video, and to not publish that video because publishing it can actually hurt that immigrant. You want to just share that video with that immigrant, with their family, with their attorney, nobody else.
Okay. So, what legal recourse does someone have if they are detained or placed in removal proceeding? If they, that didn't happen at the other side of it, what can they do? Is there anything?
So if they're detained, again, don't answer the question. So one of the pressure tactics that immigration officers use is they'll come into someone's home or place of work, and they will handcuff everybody to radiators and pipes and things, and you have to go to the bathroom. And regrettably, it's been known that some immigration officers will not let you go to the bathroom. It comes 2 p.m., 2:30, 3 p.m. You have to go pick up your kids at school, and it's been known that immigration officers have from time to time refused to let people go pick up their schools. So here they are urinating on themselves, worried to death about what's happening to their children, and they're just waiting for you to say the word Jamaica or Haiti or Honduras or Belize, and then they might let you go, but now you've just signed your own deportation order, basically. So
Okay.
if detained, you just have to keep on refusing to answer any questions about where you're from, refusing any permission for them to search you, your belongings, your home, or your place of work. And you can ask over and over again, like everything else is, as a broken record, you can also ask it, repeating over and over again, and am I free to go? Am I free to go? Am I free to go? And at a certain point, if they have nothing to hold you on, they have to let you go. They're just going to make it as unpleasant as possible because they want people to make their jobs easy.
Okay.
And
So,
I'm not sure if the ICE department of the Immigration Service purposely goes out looking for certain kinds of people. Certainly, with the new president, I think that they're going to. And these are people who are either unaware that immigrants have constitutional rights, a lot of them, not all of them. Some of them are good, decent people doing the job the right way, or don't care. So you can expect, as we saw back in 2004, 2006, some really abusive behavior, and you just have to be ready to stand up to it.
So, what options exist for someone who has been deported but still has strong ties to the U.S., such as family, business, or pending legal status?
Well, step
What
one,
options exist for
the
those?
first line of defense is not to get into deportation. Don't commit a crime, and don't do other things to get yourself into deportation, like answering questions where you're from or showing any documents or permitting them to search you. I guess it depends. Were you deported because you had some sort of criminal record? In which case, as an attorney, I'm not in a position to evaluate your situation unless you get a document from the court called a certificate of disposition that explains to me exactly what were you arrested for, exactly what the final charges were, exactly what were you convicted of. But people with criminal records, I think the vast majority of them not going to be coming back to the U.S. anytime soon, and probably most of them ever again in their lives, which is particularly tragic because there's a lot of families who could have gotten their kids U.S. citizenship early on before they started getting themselves into trouble, but they didn't. And now the kid is 16, 18, 20, 25 years old, and they're getting into trouble. And they might have been brought to the U.S. as a little kid. They know absolutely nothing about their home country. And because of their criminal record, they could end up living the rest of their lives in the country their parents come from that they don't, that they left when they were a kid and they have no recollection of. So I always tell people, if you can get your kids citizenship, if parents get themselves their citizenship prior to the kid's 18th birthday, and get the kid their residency prior to the kid's 18th birthday, and get the kid here in the United States all before their 18th birthday, that kid automatically becomes a citizen. And that way, I've had people call me, their kid is in jail, immigration is threatening to deport them, but it turns out that one of the parents was a citizen prior to the 18th birthday of the kid, the other one was a resident, the kid was a resident, and all of that happened before all of those conditions were met prior to the kid's 18th birthday. It turns out that kid was a U.S. citizen and no one knew it. And immigration was unable to deport them.
Okay. So can someone return legally after being deported?
Not without,
Is that
they
possible?
cannot return legally without permission from the government. And after you've been deported, there, depending on the grounds of deportation, there's a certain number of years you have to wait before you can ask to come back. And even then, after waiting those minimum number of years, that doesn't mean, hey, you're free and clear. The fact that you robbed a couple banks is going to be forgotten. No, depending on the grounds of deportation and what crimes you may or may not have committed, you might be forever barred from coming back to the U.S. at all. Indeed, if you've been deported and you come back without permission, you now have a permanent bar for the rest of your life that you cannot legalize your situation in the U.S. Even with a pardon during the first 10 years. And after that, without getting a very difficult to get pardon.
But outside of the criminal acts, outside those individuals who committed,
Right, but
criminal acts,
even if
for a regular family,
even if you have not committed any of the what we typically consider criminal acts or crimes, if you've been deported just because you were not legally here and you were at the wrong place at the wrong time and you told them what country you're from, if you come back in again, but come back illegally, that is a crime that makes you permanently ineligible to ever legalize your situation.
okay. But if you're deported because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, is there, after a certain amount of time, there might be a path for you to come back legally?
Yes, if you wait,
Right.
whatever,
Okay.
if you wait whatever the prescribed number of years are, and you meet and you fall in love with a citizen, and you have proof it's a legitimate marriage, yes, after that certain period of time, you can apply and come back.
And marriage is the only path forward, or is there any other path forward
Well,
besides
you might
marriage?
have had children who were born in the U.S., and there you are, you're deported. And at a certain point, A, you have been outside the U.S. for whatever period of time is prescribed by your particular case. And B, one of your U.S. citizen children turns 21, boom, that's yet another way to come back. If you have a parent who's a parent who's a citizen or a resident, after you've been out the U.S. for the prescribed amount of time, they can petition you, or they can even petition you immediately upon your deportation. And while you're waiting in line for a green card, you're also, waiting for the time to be outside the U.S. to expire. And then both those conditions are met, and boom, theoretically, you'll be able to immigrate to the United States.
Okay. So let's keep it on that same thing. If a U.S. child, right, born child, is deported alongside their non-citizen
No.
parents.
You cannot deport a U.S. citizen child. Cannot deport a U.S. citizen. So they deport you, and you have to decide, are you going to buy a ticket for your kid to accompany you? Or are you going to buy a ticket for your kid to come join you afterwards? Or are you going to leave the kid in the hands of your cousin or your uncle? But they're not going to deport kids who were born in the U.S. They're not going to deport citizens.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. All right. I thought,
So we in Connecticut, we have the legal aid office. I can't remember if it was Hartford Legal Aid or New Haven Legal Aid, created a document called the Springing Guardianship. And this is a form. I have them here in my office. I can email them to you. It's a form where you fill it out, and it says, if at any time I am detained by immigration or deported by immigration or otherwise incapable of making decisions for myself because I'm in a coma in a hospital or whatever, I give the power of guardianship or power of attorney over my children to thus and such a person. So now you sign that document with some witnesses. The person who's accepting the responsibility signs it in front of some witnesses. Then you give it to that person and they hold on to it. And it's not in effect until something happens to you. You're detained or deported or incapacitated. And then you don't have to worry at 2:30, 3 p.m. who's going to go pick up your kids. This person already has the power of attorney the instant that happens to you to take care of your kids, and you don't have to worry about your kids going into foster care and all kinds of terrible things. So this is a document that maybe 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in 10,000 immigrants have prepared for that moment of need. It's like it's like a seatbelt. Okay. Once the accident starts happening, it's too late to scramble real quick and put your seatbelt on and save your life. Okay. This is the sort of document you have to have in place, ready to go in that moment of need. And it's very easy to
And
fill out.
usually,
You don't even need a notary. You just need you need the parents of the kids. You need whoever's accepting the responsibility if that situation comes up, and then you need 2 additional witnesses to witness all the signatures.
and this is usually available through legal aid
I have it, and
or
I can
those
send it to you.
organizations.
I have it. I can send it to you. But yeah,
Okay. All right.
if you look up springing, I'm not sure if it's called springing guardianship or springing power of attorney. So if you look up Hartford Legal Aid or New Haven Legal Aid, springing power of attorney or springing guardianship, springing like jumping, you might find it on their website, and I have it available as well.
So, does immigration law differ from state to
No,
state?
no,
Because
no. Immigration law is federal law, and it's the exact same from Hawaii to Maine and Florida to Alaska, and for that matter, Puerto Rico, Guam, and Samoa.
yeah, because I know that immigration is a federal issue, but it seems that some states are more immigrant friendly while others have stricter enforcement.
Well, it's not the
So,
states. The states have absolutely no power under immigration law to do anything. It's exclusively federal law, federal
okay.
agents. Now, what you do find there are immigration offices that have a more strict and narrow approach to giving benefits and not giving benefits. You have certain immigration courts that are more generous or less generous. Here in Connecticut, we have what's considered one of the toughest immigration offices. There are cases that people would not have trouble getting approved in New York, but here in Connecticut, they'll have problems with. And the same thing goes with some of our immigration judges as far as deportation cases are concerned. But the law is written on the paper exactly the same everywhere. And the state of Connecticut has
Interesting.
nothing to
Okay.
do with it. The state of New York has nothing to do with it. The city of New Haven has nothing to do with it. And the city of Miami has nothing to do with it.
Okay. So, all right. I know you in the beginning you're talking about, and I know we're running for time, but in the beginning you're talking about individuals who are here illegal. I like using it illegal, but not with the legal status.
I like the term undocumented.
Undocumented. Thank you.
Because
For someone living in the U.S.
it covers people who came over the border and they never had documents to be here. And it covers people who came with a visa who stayed longer than they were supposed to, so they have no valid documents to be here. Both categories of people are undocumented.
So, what pathways does these individuals have? We know some people might fall in love and get married. They might have working visa. Like, what pathway do they have to citizenship exists for these individuals who are living here, undocumented?
So the biggest pathways, the most common pathways for people to get legal permanent residency status, I think 3/4 of residencies are granted based on family relationships.
Okay.
So you either have a resident who's petitioning their family member, or you have a citizen who's petitioning their family member. A resident can petition a spouse or an unmarried child and nobody else. A citizen can petition a spouse, an unmarried child, a married child, a parent, and a sibling. Now, one error a lot of people make is they say, while I'm a resident, if I petition my spouse or my child, it's going to take longer. So I should wait till I'm a citizen to petition my spouse or my unmarried child. That is a really big mistake for a number of reasons. And it's also faulty logic in several different ways that probably would not make sense to get into detail with here. But my rule of thumb for people is the instant someone becomes a resident, they should immediately petition their spouse and their unmarried children, and they should tell their unmarried children, don't get married without us having a very serious conversation first, because if you get married, everything gets erased and we have to start from the beginning again. You might have waited 5, 10 years to proceed to step 2 of the process, and it's all gone, and you have to start over again. And then, as soon as you're a citizen, you want to upgrade the 2 categories you already petitioned for, and then you immediately want to petition for the other categories. So I'm not sure what the question was, but I hope I answered it.
Okay. So, yes, you did. So can a spouse or employer help someone adjust their immigration status if they are already here?
Okay. Well, adjust immigration status is the technical term for getting residency while you are in the U.S. So you're in the U.S., you're not a resident, and you apply for residency and you get it here in the U.S. And actually, not necessarily all spouses can assist all spouses to adjust status. It depends on how that person came here. And employers are even more restricted. Employers can petition people who are legally here, but it takes several years and you have to stay legal the entire time. And if you don't, now it becomes very complicated, because once you hit a certain, whether it's 180 days or a year of what's called unlawful presence after your 18th birthday, now suddenly you will likely be required to leave the United States to finish the paperwork at the United States consulate back in your home country. But the second you leave, you will trigger a 3, and more common yet, 10-year bar to being able to return. So, so I tell people, for undocumented immigrants living in the United States, having an employer assist you to legalize your status, or as you said it, adjust status, is very, very unlikely. It's not impossible. There's a few cases where it might be done, but for the vast majority of people, not.
So, okay. So what impact does financial stability, like, if you have money, or employers that have on someone's ability to secure legal residency? Say, can you, sometimes we have to apply for visa outside of the country. If you have money, does that...
Let me see if I got the question here. Phil, if someone has a lot of money, does that help them get their residency? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Answer, technically, no. Obviously, if you have more money, you're more likely to hire an attorney, and you're more likely to hire a competent attorney. So right away, that's going to help you tremendously. If you have a lot of money, I'm talking about, and I can't remember what the numbers are, is it $1 million or $3 million? You actually might qualify for what's called the investor status. There's the investor non-immigrant visa, where you're coming here to invest for a certain number of years, but the long-term plan is to not stay here. And then there's the investor immigrant visa, where if you can persuade the Immigration Service, A, you have the money, and B, you're going to spend it to start up a business that hires a minimum of X number of people for X number of years, then you might be able to become a legal permanent resident. But you and I don't fit in that category. All right? We're talking about a lot of money and ready to spend it.
what are those individuals there who are here though undocumented and they have businesses, right? Is there any way to, I don't know, get some status change, adjusted, anything
Well,
like that?
let me
If
see
you're employing people.
let me see if I understand the question. Attorney Berns, what if there's an undocumented immigrant and they own a pizza parlor that gives well-paying jobs to 5 people? Can they legalize their status? No, because the investor visa requires you to give jobs. I think it's to 10 people for 3 years or something like that. And the money has to have come from outside the U.S. You can't start your business. If I
Oh,
understand correctly, I don't do these, but if I understand correctly, you
yeah.
can't make your money in the U.S. and then do an investor visa. But I'm not absolutely certain about that point.
Okay. Okay. All right. Understand. Just thinking. My brain was thinking. But if someone is in the U.S., if they're undocumented in the U.S., how can they still pay their taxes? How can they still pay their taxes and enter into the U.S. financial system?
Undocumented immigrants can apply for, as a matter of fact, undocumented immigrants and people who've never even been to the U.S. but have investments
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S. can apply for and get a tax identification number called a TIN or an
Mm-hmm.
ITIN or a tax ID. And with that,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't give you authorization to work, but it does give you basically an account number with the IRS with which you can pay income taxes.
And some institutions allow you to open bank accounts and build credit or even start businesses with that number.
I know lots of undocumented immigrants who have done all of those things.
And Uncle Sam is not going to report. Is Uncle Sam a reporting agency? Because we're so scared, or individuals are so scared to open bank accounts because they only have an ITIN number, like you said, and they have their businesses. So,
You know what? The government has gotten just unbelievably sophisticated at using various sources of digital information, including license plate readers. So you own a car and your license plate is XB123. There are places where the Immigration Service has access to license plate reading data, and they can see every place you've been for the last 3 years, every time you pass one of these license plate readers. There are
wow.
companies that scour the web looking for data about people, things like, do you own a vehicle? Do you own a house? Do you rent? Do you have a credit card? Do you have a debit card? What have you bought with your debit card and credit card? So the Immigration Service has access to private databases with that information. They buy it in bulk
Mm.
from, there's thousands of companies in the US alone that have, for every man, woman, and child in the United States, thousands of data points about them. Have you ever bought
Wow.
dog food and how recently and what brand was it? What what
Wow.
what brand name was it? So I'm sorry, what
So,
was your question again?
um, I was just wondering. Uh,
Oh yes,
let's circle back because
I think your question is, should someone be concerned that getting a tax identification number and paying taxes with it
yes.
are going to hurt them? Answer, I suppose um, theoretically, it could hurt you, but there's just so much information out there and it's so cheap to get it. The chances that it will increase risks to you, in my personal opinion, this is not a legal opinion, it's unlikely.
Okay. Okay. But does paying taxes though provide any legal benefits or protection in the long run? Like,
Okay.
can it work in your favor at all?
In the majority of cases, the fact that you've paid taxes makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. However, there are
Wow.
few narrow classes of immigration cases where, if you prove that you declared all your income, you didn't just file a tax return with some fake numbers, but you declared all your income and paid taxes, that yes, that can take you from yes or no to the yes side. Okay. But paying taxes doesn't take you from no to yes. It's just those cases where it's a maybe, it could push you over on the right side of the right side.
Okay. Interesting. So what happened to someone assets if they are deported? Can they protect them beforehand? Like what
The
happened?
U.S. government doesn't care if you own a car and a house and 6 pizza parlors. That's your business. And, it's your decision what to do during the process and after the process. Are you going to sell them? Are you going to give them to your cousin or what? That's irrelevant to immigration law. Immigration law just says your body, that head, those 2 arms, that torso, and those 2 legs aren't supposed to be here. We're going to fix that problem. We're going to pick it up and we're going to put it in the country where it belongs.
That's very descriptive. I understand that very clearly. So should we think about a POA, a power of attorney, or is that something
Well,
you
as
recommend
I said, you
or?
could gift it to your cousin. You could have powers of
Mhm.
attorney to give this pizza parlor to that cousin, that pizza parlor to your best friend to manage for you. Hopefully these are people you could trust and they're not going to run the business into the ground or steal the income or the business from you. But yeah, these are all things that people with stuff should be thinking about, starting with your
Mm,
kids, with the springing power of attorney that we discussed earlier.
yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm just thinking it's like the source information is very, very useful. I'm very excited to hear all this stuff. So with the recent mass deportation, how do you see this affecting the US
There
economy
has
and
been no
workforce
mass
and
recent
this is
there ha-
your opinion.
there has been no mass recent deportation. That's
Okay.
a complete
That,
figment of people's imaginations. Yes, January 20th, immigration officers started drinking a lot of high caffeine coffee, and they made a great big push. And instead of 1,000 people per day, they deported 1,200 per day. So yeah, they boosted their numbers by 20%. That caffeine is starting to wear off, and they're starting to get a little tired of overworking and overtime. Their employers are not so happy about having to pay all that overtime. So, they only have a certain number of officers, and at the rate they're going, it's going to take them 55 years to deport all the undocumented immigrants. And if that makes a lot of people say, oh my God, there's a 1 in 55 chance I might get deported in the next year, and a 1 in 55 chance I'll get deported the year after that. If you take into account, they're concentrating first on the criminals. So if you're not living with a criminal, you should be okay. Or if you are living with a criminal and everybody in the house is ready to not open the door, you're probably still not going to get deported. So, if you take out the fact that they're primarily hitting the criminals and maybe picking up everybody in the same house or same place of work, uh, and you take into account that it's going to take 55 years to deport the people who are here now, that's not counting the people who are continuing to come. Really, any given undocumented immigrant today has a less than 1 in 200 chance of being deported in the next year, unless they're dancing in front of the immigration office with a T-shirt that says, "I'm illegal, deport me, please." But you know what? Even if they have a T-shirt that says, "I'm illegal, deport me if you can," if they keep their gosh darn mouth shut and they don't well, I guess you've given the Immigration Service reasonable cause to now search you with your T-shirt, and you're not carrying your passport and the rest of it. Really, the only danger is you'll be on the news and thousands of people see your face and somebody's going to turn you in. But otherwise, theoretically, you could even do that. You could have a T-shirt that says, "I'm illegal, deport me if you can." You could dance in front of the immigration office, and they can't touch you if they have no way to find out what country you're from.
You're funny, Attorney Berns.
I,
Very descriptive.
I like to use whatever tools are at hand to communicate the concepts.
But in your and as you wrap it up, in your opinion, though, not legal advice, but like, what do you think is going to happen to our economy in terms of they're trying to rev up? I know you said they can't maintain this,
Yeah,
like they don't have the bandwidth to maintain this, but
I think what's gonna happen is for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, they probably will ramp up the number of agents. and, give them way too much testosterone, so they treat people really, really bad. We're going to hear some nightmare stories like we did back in 2004, 2006, when the second President Bush ramped up deportations in a big way. And then I think we're going to find that employers are going to start getting concerned. We're going to start seeing the hotel industry telling the president, hey, chill out. The restaurant industry telling the president to chill out. The construction industry telling people to chill out. Mayors of cities and towns and governors of states are going to start saying, hey, you're killing us here. When you deport the parents, when you deport the breadwinning parent and you leave the spouse and the kids with no income, now suddenly those people are going to have to seek welfare. We're going to see it, I believe, run out of steam very quickly, as we saw back in 2004, 5, 6, and 7. By the time the second Bush was leaving and Obama was coming in, deportations were back down to normal for those reasons.
Okay.
So
how can
put your
community come?
put your
Go ahead.
seatbelts on. Learn what your rights are. Practice your rights. You and everybody in your home and in your place of work. Talk to your neighbors and your coworkers and everybody. This is what we're going to do if immigration shows up. Everyone's going to shut up and pull out their cell phones and not open any doors. As a matter of fact, not only should the door be closed, it should be locked. And the windows should not only be closed, but also locked. Because back in 2004, 5, 6, when second President Bush was doing a big push, immigration agents were just walking through unlocked doors and opening and crawling through unlocked windows. So keep those windows and doors closed and locked, and make sure even the 2-year-old knows don't open the door ever.
Awesome. Thank you. So what can the immigrant community come together? How can the immigrant community come together to support and protect each other?
Share the
this time?
information.
I know you just said.
Share the information I just told you, and everybody make sure you know where the record video button is on your phone.
Oh, one more thing. Can birthright citizenship be taken away through executive order?
I don't believe it.
I thought it was.
I don't believe it can. It's the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which means it's part of the Constitution. So they're going to have to pass an amendment to do that. And there's no way they're doing that before Trump dies. Unless he lives to be 100 or something. But even then.
Okay, so what okay. What warning signs should people look for when seeking legal assistance to avoid fraud and scams? Emotions are high right now, right? Yep. And it's prime time to take advantage of people. So what should they do?
Well, there's a number of websites. If you Google how to choose an immigration attorney, there's a number of websites that have a lot of very good standard questions you should ask. I think some of them go a little bit overboard, but one of the big things people don't do is they ask the wrong questions. They either don't ask any questions or they ask the wrong questions. I see it really regrettable. I see it as very regrettable that, there's an attorney who's willing to cut corners and they make it look like you're winning your case. So you go tell your friends and relatives, they go to the attorney and they do the same, black magic that makes it look like your case is going well. So now people send more friends and relatives and more friends and relatives. And then 1, 2, and 3 years later, when the first people start getting deported, that's the first sign people realize, hey, there's a problem. One thing I notice is for some reason, people, the further they go from where they live, the more likely they are to end up with a crooked lawyer. I tell people, look, here we are in Stamford, Connecticut, an hour from Times Square in New York City. If you want crooked lawyers, there's a few of them around here. You don't need to go so far. You can find one that's much more conveniently close. They can steal your money more easily, more quickly. You can put yourselves in their hands and get yourselves deported. And it'll all be much more convenient than driving all the way to Brooklyn or the Bronx.
Well, in the immigrant community, we go by referrals, right? We know by people we know. Like, I know somebody,
Yep.
and that's how we,
Well,
and it can be to our own detriment.
anytime you hear there's a lawyer who can do something that other lawyers are not doing, no, be careful.
Red flag. Red flag.
There's no such thing. And anytime you hear there's some lawyer doing something that other lawyers can't do or don't do or whatever, get a second opinion. Get a second opinion.
Amen.
I tell people, look, I don't see any solutions for your case, but I'm not God. Maybe there's something out there I'm missing, but I am 99% certain there's absolutely nothing that can be done in your case. If anyone tells you any differently, you make sure to get their business card. You make sure to ask them and write down exactly what law they think applies to your situation that I'm telling you doesn't exist. And before you pay $500, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, you come to my office with that business card and the exact name of the law this attorney says is going to help you. And we're going to call them together on my phone. We're going to put them on speaker and we're going to see how that conversation goes. If I'm wrong, I'll give you $100 bill.
Amen. You hear that first here in Alec Money 365. So something I ask all my guests at the end of the show is, what is one saying or proverb that your family always use to teach you a lesson or to offer guidance in life?
Well, you threw me with the family because there's a really great Haitian proverb I absolutely love. Actually, there's a whole bunch of them I really love. I like all proverbs, every language. But something my family said. If it's too good to believe it, it almost certainly is. That's that.
And what's the Haitian proverb? What's
No.
the Haitian one you like?
That's what my dad always used to say, and that is really handy advice. Okay, if it's too good to believe, it almost certainly is, and guess what? It almost always is. Someone promises you, I'm going to get 10% on your investment. Someone tells you they can get you a green card. No one else said they could. Almost certainly something wrong with that. But the Haitian expression, there are many that I like a lot. But one of them I really like is, I'll say it in Creole first, Derrière mon, c'est mon, which translates I'll give you the simple translation and I'll explain it. Behind mountains, more mountains. And what it means is, we're presented with obstacles in our life, and we work and we work and we suffer and we suffer. And just when we're overcoming one obstacle, we realize there's another one beyond that, and another one beyond that, and another one beyond that. So life is a constant struggle, and we just have to accept that whatever we're confronting today isn't the last thing we're going to have to confront in our lives.
Amen. I like that. All right. Thank you so much,
My pleasure.
Attorney Berns. I really, really enjoy you being here. This conversation with you has been an eye-opener, to say the least, and I hope it has given the audience clarity and resources, a sense of empowerment. And when it comes to navigating immigration challenges, we know that these issues are heavy and affect, so many families in our community. But knowledge is power, and taking proactive steps today can make all the difference tomorrow. So, once again, to my audience, if you are someone you know is facing immigration concerns, please seek qualified help, legal help, and don't go through this alone. Check out the resources. We'll share, the attorney person is going to give us some resources. I'll put them in the show notes. We'll share in the show notes. And if you found value into this episode, as always, please like, share, subscribe, tell your family, friends, and the community. And let's continue to support and educate and uplift each other, because when one of us succeed, we all do. And remember, until next time, keep your money IRA. Oh, let's back up. Attorney Berns, please tell me. Let it be known that President Trump is not the first president to be doing this. A lot of other presidents have done this. So he's just, I don't know. He's not the only one, right? A lot of other presidents have done this.
Eisenhower did it in the 1950s. Wilson, I don't think it was quite so much Wilson, but more, I don't know, Harding and Coolidge in the 1920s. Bush number 2, He came to power in 2000, January 2001. In 2004, 5, and 6, he was doing it. Obama, interestingly, was doing it, but not for the same reasons at all. More people got deported under Obama than any other president on a yearly basis. And what people don't realize is Obama wasn't anti-immigrant. He had a deal with the Republican Congress. If I prove to you I'm willing to enforce the laws on the books, will you give the 11 million undocumented immigrants a path to citizenship? They said yes. So he did his part, and he proved that he was going to deport more people than anybody else. And then the Republican Congress reneged on the promise to pass immigration reform. And here we are today, stuck in the same situation.
So see, my father always tell me there's nothing new under the sun. So it's just a cycle repeating itself, but hopefully we can come to a better solution this time around. So remember, until next time, keep your money IRA.